So, Claire, you are a Tory councillor.
Yep.
What is your vision, your view of this sort of, we might have to get rid of Liz Truss now, because they are now talking about that sort of thing again?
Yeah, but there's always a lot of talk about things like that. Whenever they're not happy, it's like, we're going to get rid of you. However, she is a new leader. The rules state that we can't do anything for 12 months. Those are the 1922 committee rules. All right, they can be changed, but it's a complicated process. There's also a vacancy on the 1922 Executive Committee because Nazgani was made a minister, so you have to replace that person to have a full complement. So it's not as simple as, well, we just want to get rid of her and we will. So there can be some snarking in the background. There always is. And especially ahead of conference, everybody has come out of recess and they've seen Labour Party conference, and now it's our own conference. And it's almost that bit before going back to school where everybody doesn't know.
No, they're always doing.
This is always worse.
This is not helpful. It's not helpful, though, is it? Because you would think that they might think, well, we're going to have to work in the interests of this country, but they're so self-centred. All they're thinking about is, oh, I might not be elected for my seat if I don't do this. And to be honest, the 1922 committee, last time when Boris won his vote of no confidence, they wanted to change the rules. So that doesn't necessarily work out. What do you think, Leo?
Yeah, I mean, I think changing leaders right now, I mean, part of the reason we're in the situation, the Tory Party's in the situation it is because of the 8-week selection process, which is way too long. I mean, we can just have the balls in a box and we'll pick it out like a tombola. You know, that'd be a more effective way of picking a leader. And I understand that, you know, Conservative MPs, particularly in the Red Wall and these newer seats that Tories have taken, are concerned that they won't get elected next time round. And it is really worrying, because normally when you've got economic catastrophe, you can vote in the Tory Party to fix it. We don't have that option now. It's the Tory Party that caused it.
Well, no, I don't think that. But
a year and a half is a long time in politics. A week's a long time in politics. So I think we can see what Liz Truss does. I mean, ideologically, she's on the right track. It just wasn't the right time to just rip up the rule book, you know, introduce these...
No, it was. Yeah, I think it was. You had to. I mean, look, we can't carry on twisting of the way we are. I mean, do the same. They can get the same result if you carry on with this nonsense.
Well, I mean, the collapse in the pound, the criticism from the IMF.
But there is a sort of modicum of that. But we also had to do something. It was so stagnant. The economy was so stagnant. Unless you come up with something bold, you were just going to continue along the same lines. But I do agree with you that it shouldn't necessarily have been all at once. You could have done the energy grant scheme. You could have done the lower rate of tax for a start, and then held the other tax changes that you wanted to make until March, April of next year.
Why
you didn't all have... Because you will spook markets. It's just common knowledge that you will spook markets. They aren't going to be happy with no plans to pay down a debt repayment. We are borrowing a lot of money.
A lot of people made money out of that, though. A lot of the traders in the city were rubbing their hands with glee when the pound slid like that. I mean, and actually, it's actually...
Well, yeah, exactly. So don't give them money. This is like when Soros bet against the Bank of England. Don't let people be able to make that money from catastrophic fiscal policy. No. And also, I mean, part of the problem is that Truss didn't come through and announce everything at once, because she should have announced what she was going to do to save money, as well as saying, you know, what she's going to spend money on these tax cuts. She should have said, but we're going to save money. We're going to scrap every single equality, diversity and inclusion department in the public sector, because I don't think the NHS isn't a hotbed of racism and homophobia. No. It doesn't need these departments.
She won't have anything left to say that if she did that. No, I think I put this down to a bit of naivety, actually, because obviously you're a new leader, you'll make lots of mistakes, especially at the beginning, and this was the first thing they did. But
there's no space for mistakes when you're Prime Minister.
Well, that's a nonsense thing to say. They all make mistakes. They are not automatons or machines. They are human beings, so they're going to make mistakes. So I accept a margin of error. But what I'm saying is perhaps the Tory Party themselves should be honest and accept a level of error as well. I think they're too quick to come in and say, oh, we're going to get rid of them all. There's even talk, they were talking to other Labour MPs to join with Labour MPs why don't you just join the Labour Party then if that's what they want? You think they're going to win? You won't get your seat
Don't
back.
give them ideas.
Well, they might as well. They're no use to the Tory Party. They've got a majority of almost 80. Obviously, a few of the MPs have disappeared for certain reasons we won't go into. But the point of this is that they've got a majority. What are they doing? Why are they doing this?
But you know that rumour that Tory MPs are talking to Labour MPs? Well, we've just had the Labour Party conference. So where do we think these rumours have come around? All the Tory MPs back in their constituencies, they're not in Westminster. They're not in a room with Labour MPs. They don't have them on WhatsApp groups. So I think there's probably a little bit mischief-making from the Labour Party. They've come out on a high from their own conference. They've thought, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll put this out there and see if anybody bites. And they have.
Well, of course they would, though, and especially with the way the pound slid and fell. But what I'm saying is when the pound slid like that, the Tory MPs should then be almost working together as a team to try and back up and help support it so that we don't end up in this cycle. But instead, what we're hearing is, oh, God, things have gone wrong. Let's get rid of them. Let's start again. Listen, we're not going to pay. Listen, you, Tory MPs, if you're watching now, we're not going to carry on paying for you like this. We're paying for them to, what we'll do is we'll avoid making a decision and we'll just get rid of them. So 8 weeks later, we don't like that. They haven't done anything in the gap. Oh, we've had a recess now. Oh, obviously, we had the funeral, so we all respected that moment. But then there's a conference, then there's this. I mean, and now they're going to try and get, if they're serious, I mean, that'll be like, how many months? What are we on now? 3-4 months?
Yeah, absolutely. And what people need right now, what markets need to see is some stability and not this, these plans didn't work, so we're going to roll back in them and change them. It's like, no, we need to actually stick to something and see it through. And honestly, I think long term, even though it's not the perfect tax cuts, I don't think they're going to increase inflation, and also they're not going to stimulate growth. I think they're smarter tax cuts that could have been made, but what do I know? I'm a comedian. But ideologically, they're the right kind of. It's moving in the right direction. We are paying more tax than Norway in this country. So for anybody to say that we're suddenly becoming this low tax Texas type state is an absolute nonsense.